commanded. Now, let's first, however, consider December 25th and the story of the birth of Yahshua that's found in the scriptures of the Bezorah. And we read this, it's the most detailed account is found in Luke 2, 8 through 16, that says, "And there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. And lo, the messenger of Yahweh came upon them, and the splendor of Yahweh shined round about them, and they were very afraid. And the messenger said unto them, Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a deliverer, which is the Messiah, the sovereign. And this shall be a sign unto you. You shall find the babe wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. And suddenly there was with the messenger a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising Yahweh, and saying, Praises to Yahweh in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill towards men. And it came to pass, as the messengers were gone away from them into the heavens, that the shepherds said one to another, Let us now go down to Bethlehem, and see this thing which is come to pass, which Yahweh has made known unto us. And they came with haste, and found Mary and Joseph and the babe lying in a manger." Okay? There is the Christmas story in a nutshell. Our first item of discussion is that the shepherds were in the fields with their flocks. This would not have been the case in December, as the flocks were in the field from March to November. Now, if we go back in time in the meteorological records, try to say that 5 times real fast, it's going to show that at this time, at the change of the millennium, prior to the change of the millennium, there was between 1 and 2 inches of frost on the ground between December and February. There was also an average rainfall of 4 to 6 inches that was falling in freezing or near freezing temperatures. Now, this is what history records at that period of time. For 2,000 years, these particular weather conditions have not changed. It's the same way there today as it was 2,000 years ago. You go to Israel in December, it's going to be really cold and it's going to be raining. So, no one and nothing was in the fields during this period of time. So when did this event take place? When was Yahshua born?
But that's why all the animals were in there with him.
Well, that's right. They were staying warm. That's right.
Yeah.
So, the Tanakh tells us exactly, and the Bezorah provides the math. So, we consider the chronology of the events as found in Luke. Zechariah was in the priestly service of Abijah, according to the message of Luke. According to 1 Chronicles 24, 1 through 19, this was the 8th course of service, with each course lasting a week. The first began in the first week of Nisan. An 8-week rotation minus Passover. Everybody would serve on Passover. Would put him serving from Iyar 27 to Sivan 5. Sivan 6 is Shavuot, so he would have been done the day before Shavuot, meaning that he would have remained in Jerusalem another week for Shavuot. He was a Jewish male. The males were required to go to Jerusalem during Shavuot. It's one of the 3 pilgrimage festivals. So he would have gone home around the 13th of Sivan. Okay? Now, during this time period, the messenger Gabriel has appeared to him during his service and has told him he's going to have a son, and he's laughed it off, and Gabriel has basically zipped up his mouth so he can't talk, as the story goes. So he's been away for a while, a long while, and he goes home. So nature runs its course. Elizabeth would have conceived in Sivan around June. Now, according to the scriptures, being the modest and humble woman that she was, and because of her age and being shy, she hid herself away, according to the Bezorah, for 6 months. She was then visited by the newly pregnant Miriam. Yohanan the Immerser, John the Baptist, was born in the spring around Pesach. Yahshua, having been conceived in the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy with Yohanan around late December, which would have been Hanukkah, would have been born 270 days later, or around 9 months later, around September, the time of Sukkot. Okay, so we put Yahshua's birth at Sukkot, which makes sense. The first day he was born. The 8th day of Sukkot is called Hoshana Rabbah, the Great Redemption. That he's taken to the priest and circumcised. They ask, what is his name to be? And they say, Yahshua. That on this day, the covenant between Yahweh Elohim and humankind has come in the name of Yahshua, and his redemption, his deliverance, his restoration in his name has just been announced on Hoshana Rabbah. So the feasts and the festivals are there for a reason. The feasts and the festivals of Yahweh Elohim point to the coming of and the death of Yahshua, as well as the second coming and the world to come as well. They are accurate and they don't lie. So where and why is the birth of Jesus Christ held on December 25th, as it's clearly not the date of birth or the time of birth of Yahshua? So first we go back in time 1,000 or more years, and we remember from the scripture that says the root that bears gall and wormwood. So we go back 1,000 or more years before the birth of Yahshua to begin to find our answers. And we began with the ancient Roman festival of Saturnalia in honor of the deity Saturn, also known as the festival of the winter solstice, that was celebrated from December 17th to the 25th. Now originally, before it became all that in a bag of potato chips, it was a farmer's festival. It was something that the farmers did to ensure a good crop and all that other stuff. But as time passed, it became a major festival of lawlessness, sexual immorality, murder, and drunken lunacy. It was a time where human sacrifice was actually taking place. During this period of time, the government pretty much all but closed its doors. The courts were closed. Nobody could be held accountable for any crime during this period of time. And it's funny, when I was a police officer in the city of Euless, on Christmas Day, we were told, don't arrest anybody. Don't write any tickets. It was interesting when I researched this and said, wow, it's kind of interesting that it goes back to that even. During this period of time, a victim would be chosen as the Lord of Misrule. This person could be either male or female, really didn't make a difference. This person would be fed beyond indulgence. They would really, just do all kinds of stuff for this person. This person would be made to participate in all types of physical and sexual pleasures. There were no boundaries. At the end of the feast, on the 25th of December, this person would be murdered, would be sacrificed as payment for the sins of all the people's crimes and indulgences during the feast. Other activities performed during the feast of Saturnalia that goes back a couple of thousand years before Yahshua were going house to house naked and singing songs. We say this is a precursor of caroling. What's interesting is that this going naked singing songs from house to house lasted into the 17th century. They were still doing it in the 1600s in Rome.
Yeah, they kind of do it now.
Okay.
I don't remember Carol.
Extreme group sexual immorality was taking place as it was a fertility festival. And the eating of biscuits shaped like human beings, which we have today, those delicious little gingerbread cookies that have the little gumdrop buttons. So, now at the parties, because there were parties, ivy that represented the female nature and holly that represented the male nature would be intertwined, they'd be mixed together, and this would be used to decorate the accommodations where these events were taking place. As time progressed, mistletoe was brought into the mix as well. That mistletoe was used as time progressed to represent fertility during these get-togethers and was hung overhead as a type of blessing over the sexual immorality that was taking place. So you're surrounded by ivy, you have mistletoe hanging overhead, and you're having this orgy, this just totally, anything goes. So as stated, this was originally a celebration held in honor of the deity Saturn. But in 274 BCE, it's before Joshua, Emperor Aurelius declared that the deity Dios Sol Invictus was to be the official deity of the Roman Empire, and set the date of the birth of this deity to be December 25th. This deity was also to become known as Mithra in later times, and by the time Constantine came along, Mithraism was the number 2 religion next to Christianity. Okay? So Sol Invictus remained the official deity of Rome and was the deity that was worshipped with zeal by Constantine, who in 312 became the emperor of Rome. Along with his ascension to the throne, he declared Christianity to be the official religion of Rome. This was in 313, at the Edict of Milan, where he declared tolerance for religion. He declared Christianity to be the official state religion of Rome. It was during this time that the church, which was now called the Universal or Catholic Church by Constantine, adopted Saturnalia as a means of converting the pagan masses. In order to do this, and with Constantine's blessing, Saturnalia, December 25th, was stated to be the Sunday, was stated to be and became, according to Rome and the Church, the birth of Christ, coinciding with the birth of the sun deity Sol Invictus and also with Mithra. Now, the debauchery of Saturnalia would not change for many centuries. Just because the church adopted it, they said, you can continue doing what you're doing. So this kind of gives us an idea of where the state of the church was. And they declared that it would be called Christ's Mass, and it was in 336 that it was first called Christ's Mass. This particular Mass was actually celebrated in honor of the goddess of the heaven, who they replaced Eos with Mary. And the birth of Joshua was turned into the birth of Adonis, or Tammuz, from the branch of a tree, which was used during this particular event, was used to predict the birth of Christ. So it was called Christ Mass for the first time in 336. Now, we have the Dark Ages, so nothing's going to change. It goes on this way. In 1642, the Puritans in England gained control of Parliament, and for the next 44 years, the observance of Christmas was outlawed because of its pagan roots and because of the immorality displayed during this day of celebration. And the ban was both in England and in the colonies of the Americas. Go back in the records of Boston for this time, and you'll find records of arrests for people that were attempting to celebrate the Christmas tradition. Okay? The thing was that another reason that the Puritans put a ban on it is because the lawlessness had moved from Rome into England, and for this period of time, the streets in the towns in England and even in the Americas turned into total chaos. So it was put to a stop by the Puritans for 44 years. Now, in the 19th century, it's in the 1800s, the rabbis from the ghetto in Rome would be forced to wear clown-like clothing, and they'd be pelted with refuse as they were paraded through the streets as part of the December 25th celebration. In 1836, the Jewish community petitioned Pope Gregory XVI to stop this abuse. And this was his response: "It is not opportune to make any innovation to the festival. We are not going to change the festival. It remains as it is." We have this absolute, total, and complete lunacy that's going on. And the Pope, the vicar of Christ, the one that represents Christ on earth, says, we're not going to stop this immorality that's taking place. So this is a very interesting thing. In 1881, the Jewish ghetto in Rome, I forgot to put that in there, was destroyed. Women were raped, and by the end of this festive assault carried out on December 25th in the name of Christ, 12 Jews were dead and many seriously injured. Anti-Semitism was running rampant during this period of time. It was a very, very bad time for Jews worldwide. Now, the Jews weren't saints by any means. They basically, the Jews had brought this upon themselves because it was their responsibility to take the Bezorah to the people. It wasn't the Gentiles' responsibility to take the Bezorah to the people. In other words, the Jews, it was to go to the Jew first and then to the Gentile. The Jews rejected it, and because they rejected it, because they would have known the Scriptures, the Gentiles got a hold of it and brought idolatry into the mix. So we say that the Jews got what was coming to them in a sense. Anti-Semitism exploded. They were the Christ killers. Now, as time has progressed, the Ashtaroth poles that were used in the fertility worship of the goddess of the heaven that were incorporated into Saturnalia and Christ's Mass were replaced by Christmas trees with their gold and silver decor to represent the sun and the moon. Now, if we read in Jeremiah 10, 2 through 4, it says this: "Thus says Yahweh," now this is Yahweh that's saying this, "learn not the way of the nations. Be not dismayed, or don't be in awe of the signs of the heavens, for the nations are in awe of them. For the customs of the people are vanity. For it is but a tree which one cuts out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with an axe. They deck it with silver and gold, and they fasten it with nails and with hammers, that it move not." Okay? There's an idea that's going. This was taking place back in Canaan. These were the Ashtaroth poles, the poles that were put on high. They were basically totem poles that were worshipped by the Canaanites, and it was the iniquity of the kings of Israel and Judah that the bad kings would go up there and they would put up the poles and they'd start worshiping Ishtar, and then the good kings would go and they'd knock them all down. The bad kings would come and they'd put them all up, and they went back and forth until Elohim said, "That's enough, you're going into captivity." So but they came